In this brief video we're going to focus on how did the Nazi Party develop between 1924 and 1928. And the big picture of this is that this period was known as the Nazis being in the so-called wilderness, and this is because their support was incredibly low during this time. By 1928 this is just 1 year before the Depression and ultimately just 5 years before Hitler got into power. So just after the failed Munich Putsch, between 1923 and 1924, Hitler's time in prison was a key turning point for Nazi tactics. Hitler decided that instead of trying to achieve power by force, he and the Nazi Party instead would try and achieve power through democratic means and not by force. This meant that they would try to appeal to the German people in order to get them to vote for Hitler and the Nazi Party. Now 1924 to 1928 was a period of prosperity for the Weimar government. Led by Stresemann, he was able to get foreign American loans in order to kick-start the economy, and this created new businesses and ultimately hundreds of thousands of jobs. During this same period, Nazi support dramatically fell, and this was because people were relatively doing okay. They had jobs and the economy was prospering. And this is taken from John D. Clare's website, but it's actually from the book The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. And it says, support for the Nazi Party had grown, this is with regards to before 1924, due to the country's problems of hyperinflation and the French invasion of the Ruhr. By 1928, Nazism appeared to be a dying cause. Now that Germany's outlook was suddenly bright, the Nazi Party was rapidly withering away. One scarcely heard of Hitler or the Nazis except as a joke. So this reinforces this idea that between 1924 and 1928, support for the Nazis dramatically fell. However, it was a period where the Nazis were able to reorganize themselves in order to push for trying to get into power. The first thing Hitler did during this period was to create his own personal bodyguards. Hitler created the SS, who were loyal and fanatical followers. This helped him to really strengthen his position within the party itself. Secondly, he put Joseph Goebbels in charge of propaganda. Now he was an expert on propaganda techniques. This idea of trying to persuade people to vote for the Nazis and actually boost Hitler's and the Nazis' appeal. He did this via a variety of different means: posters, speeches, rallies. The Nazis even had their own newspapers, and he was able to focus on new techniques, new technologies such as speeches that were played on the radio. Here are some of the examples of the posters that were published at the time, and you can see that through the use of colour and symbols and strong positive imagery, the Nazis became experts at propaganda, and this was developed during 1928. Thirdly, another essential factor was that Hitler got the support of rich industrialists and businessmen, and this was able to pay for the vast amounts of money needed for the propaganda and the SA and the SS and Nazi organisations. Hitler was able to do this by threatening that the communists would take over Germany, and if that happened then the rich people would lose their wealth and their businesses. So this was essential for Hitler with regards to raising funds. And finally, Hitler was able to merge like-minded political parties into the Nazi Party. Now you can see there in 1924 there are some of where the Nazi parties were based. But as you can see, by 1928 Hitler had got like-minded political parties and was able to make sure that they covered the entire country. So going back to the key question, and in summary, how did the Nazi Party develop between 1924 and 1928? Essentially, Hitler was able to reorganise the party. He made sure that he preserved his political position with the SS, his loyal and fanatical followers. Secondly, he made Joseph Goebbels in charge of propaganda, where they were able to come up with some fantastic propaganda techniques like posters and new technologies and the speeches. Thirdly, Hitler got the support of the rich industrialists and the businessmen. This created massive funds for the party. And then finally, Hitler was able to gather like-minded political parties together.